This is Getting Up with Reich and Bryan Foti. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Getting Up podcast. I'm Bryan Foti, alongside with my buddy Bryan Reicher. Bryan, what's going on today, pal?
Feeling good today, Bri. How we doing, kid?
We're doing good. We're getting ready to break down the New York Jets, the defensive side of the ball. We did the offensive side of the ball in our previous episode. We're going to break down the defense for the New York Jets today. We've got a good episode planned. We'll break down the positions. We'll go into our 2-minute drill later. We'll talk about the new coaching staff with the hire of Gregg Williams as the defensive coordinator. And the Jets' defense this year, I think, is going to be a key component. We know the focus is going to be on Sam Darnold, but they did make a lot of additions on that side of the ball as well in the offseason. Some positions they lack a little bit. We'll go into that. I think they lack at the cornerback position. But moving forward, I think they've made a couple of improvements. The pass rush still needs a little bit of work, but they've added a pass rusher in the third round as well. So let's jump right into it. And I guess we'll get started with the defensive line groupings. And the big issue for me is the pass rush, Brian. And they didn't really address it until the third round of the draft. They needed an edge rusher. I don't think they got one. That's spectacular. Jachai Polite could be a guy that maybe could fill that role, but it's yet to be seen. So with this group here, Leonard Williams on his contract year, his walk year, looking for a big year under Gregg Williams. What's your expectations for this group going forward into the 2019 season?
Well, when you take a look at this defense, you really got to break it down, and it's tough to really think about the D-line as a pass rush, especially with, the new coach, the new coordinator, Gregg Williams, who we love as the hire. I think it's a great hire. But, I think he's going to be running a lot of the 3-4 scheme. So when I look at the D-line, I'm really just kind of looking at the three positions, the DN, the nose, and the other DN. And, I actually think that this is an extremely strong group for the Jets, with Leo Q and the Goose.
Yeah, I like the interior defensive lineman for this team. I think Leonard Williams going into this walk year is going to have a big year for New York. Last year, he was double teamed a lot. He only had 5 sacks, 27 solo tackles, but he's going to play better. I think this is a year, especially with Quinn Williams coming in too in his first year as a rookie. Maybe he can suck up some of those double teams, or maybe Williams doesn't get as much, and the additions of some of the guys. But I like that they brought back Henry Anderson. I know he had a nice year last year. He had a little bit of a burst that showed some good stability.
Yeah,
there.
that was a great hire. A great hire, a great signing. I thought Anderson was terrific last year. Had 7 sacks, kind of in his 5th year, just like Leo, and seems to be kind of taking a leadership role, even though he's only in his 5th year in the league. Him and Leo definitely leaders up front. Hopefully they can help the kid Q, and definitely a good group. I like this group for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about the first round pick, Quinn Williams out of Alabama. We talked about him a little bit in our draft preview, but more go in depth a little bit here on the defensive preview. First year coming out of Alabama, you loved him coming out of college. I know he was a good player in the SEC. I think this kid is gonna. I don't know if he'll thrive in year one, but I definitely think he's got potential to be an all-pro, and they perhaps said this might be the best player in the draft. What are your thoughts on Quinn Williams really blossoming? He had a little bit of a calf injury in the minicamp, so we didn't really see too much of him on the field. But I think this is a guy that can, really come in and wreck a defense, especially in the run game.
Yeah, I think he's going to be terrific in the run game. Kind of a late bloomer at Alabama. It's so hard to get through all the 5 stars and eventually wait your turn. But, every game the kid was in, he flashed. He was terrific. He's super young. Obviously we want him to stay healthy, and he could have a terrific season. But, Brian, I think it's going to be tough because I know that, Coach Williams is going to have a ton of different schemes. But in that traditional 3-4, it's going to be very difficult to put up, statistical numbers in that position in this kind of defense. And I know that Gregg will, Coach Williams will move him around, and, he's definitely very good one-on-one in the pass rush, but I think it could be a little bit of a tough transition, especially right away, receiving those doubles on every single play and really being the focus up the middle.
Yeah, but if he gets those doubles, maybe that frees up Williams and he could get some sacks and it allows Anderson. And then we didn't even talk about Steve McClendon, who's coming back for another year with the Jets, kind of the vocal leader of that defense in the nose. So he's going to see some playing time. So how do you think with the rotation? Because they have a lot of guys technically in that kind of that group with Williams, McClendon, Henry Anderson, Quentin Williams. How do you think Greg Williams rotates all these guys and gets some reps? Like, that's going to be something interesting, I think, that we could look for at training camp, how the rotation of these defensive linemen, because no one's really a pass rusher. They're all more of the edge-setting rush guys, run-stopping defensive players. So it'll be interesting to see who gets on the field, and it'll be a fun battle to watch in camp, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how Williams is going to kind of move these guys around because, I think you made a great point. They are, when you look at them on paper, a very, run defensive-oriented guys, not really pass rushers, speed rushers. But, they could use them in multiple looks. They could have Q and McClendon on the field. We didn't even touch on the Jets pick last year, Shepard at all, who, reports out of campus he could be, close to being cut if he doesn't produce. But, because the group is so competitive. But, a strong group. I'm excited to see what Williams does. And, definitely one of the stronger groups of the defense.
Yeah, I would definitely say this is the strongest group of the defense. And we'll move into the linebackers. The Jets last year, bringing in, obviously, over from Tennessee, Avery Williamson. This year they bring in C.J. Mosley from Baltimore to shore up the middle in the middle linebacker spot there. So I like their two inside linebackers. But then on the outside, you've got Polite, who's going to kind of be that edge pass rusher. You have Jordan Jenkins back, and then you've got Brandon Copeland again. But this was the issue that I had. There's really no pass rusher here. But with the group that they have, I think it's going to be up to Greg Williams, and I love the Mosley signing because he's going to be that guy that comes in, becomes the leader of the defense, gets everybody lined up, calls the plays. He'll make stops up the middle. Williamson did a good job with that last year, but now pairing them, like you said, in that 3-4, you're going to have two tackling machines, guys that can maybe take on blocks, or if Leonard takes on a double team or Q, like you said up front, maybe frees them up. And Jordan Jenkins in the run game is pretty good, too. He can get a little bit of a burst. And then I think Polite's going to end up starting coming out of the third round from Florida. But that battle between him and Copeland in the offseason or in preseason will be an interesting one. So what are your thoughts on this linebacker group? I kind of think they're average at best because you got the two inside guys are good. The outside guys, I mean, Jenkins is all right, but he's not a stud, and Polite and Copeland are, yet to be determined because we haven't really seen a ton of them, and we saw a little bit of Copeland last year, but it's nothing special.
Well, I think the linebackers could be described as kind of two really extremes. I think CJ and Avery could be potentially the best combination of inside linebackers, both in their sixth year, 26 and 27. CJ's been a 4-time Pro Bowler. Avery led the team in tackles last year and was terrific, probably the unsung hero of the defense. But
120 tackles last year for him.
Absolutely terrific. CJ's going to be that Secretary of Defense, running the show for Greg, calling out everything. But my biggest concern, why I kind of knocked the Quentin Williams pick a little bit, even though I think he's super talented. These edge rushers are nothing to write home about. I think they're potentially probably the 32nd rated edge rushers in the NFL if I had to pick. I think Jenkins is a solid player. You hit the nail on the head. Polite hopefully beats out Copeland. I just didn't see enough from Copeland. 5 sacks last year. I think Polite could definitely give a spark to that. But, two extremes. Very, very good and elite, and very, very poor.
Yeah, and talking about Ja'Kai Polite, I guess the edge rusher is going to be the big concern here. Like you said, I agree. The two inside guys with Williamson and CJ are going to be good up the middle. But expectations for Ja'Kai Polite this year. Does he come in? I know he's got talent, but they said in Florida he was late to meetings. Maybe the Jets show him how to be pros. This is a guy that, in the third round, these are the picks that you need to hit home on, and Mike McCagnon's no longer here, but when the draft came out, everybody said this was going to be the draft pick that kind of defined his draft this year because, everyone liked the Quinn Williams pick. It was safe. But this pick could be a boom or bust. He had first-round ability. All the scouts said it. And I'm intrigued to see this guy get on the field because if he has a first-round talent and you could find that in the third round, then the Jets just hit a home run. But I'm not going to get all excited just yet. I want to actually have him show me on the field what he can do, get after the quarterback a little bit, get some pressure in regular season games as well. Because I remember the first year when they drafted Vernon Golston, he looked good in the preseason, and then the regular season came, and he was just atrocious.
The worst ever.
And the Jets haven't had I haven't seen a great, consistent pass rusher since John Abraham, and the last time he actually coincidentally wore number 56, I think, was the 05 season. So that was the last time that we really had a big pass rusher on the team. And, going forward, hopefully this guy Polite can answer the bell and, really just step up this year and be a pleasant surprise. I know with Rex they had Aaron Maben for a couple years, but he was never really a guy that was going to be able to stick. He was kind of a skinny, one-hit wonder, just go get the quarterback. Quentin Coples, another Rex Ryan bust of a draft pick. Brutal pick. He never really lived up to the potential of a pass rusher. So
right before Melvin Ingram.
Yep, and Melvin Ingram is still in the league going strong. I remember we had that debate, too, talking about that guy might have been the pick. But going back to Polite, this year I think, it's not a crucial year, but you'd like to show, just like we said with Sam Darnold last year, you want to see flashes that he could play. You'd like to see in the third round, and it's tough to have expectations for a third-round pick. But, in this case, first-round talent, everyone says it. This is going to be a guy that I'm going to be watching a lot in the preseason and in practice this year at training camp. And this is a guy I'm going to have my eye on this year because I think if he could potentially, be a player, the Jets may have something here, and it may, help their defense out tremendously.
Yeah, I think you should view Polite as kind of a pleasant surprise. Being a Jet fan, you look through the Jets draft history, and, we really never get any production out of any guys after the first round, and even the first round guys are iffy at times. But the way I'm going to look at it, I'm just going to look at him as a pleasant surprise, like you said. Hopefully he can bring some production. Hopefully he brings some fire. If anyone could get anything out of him, it's a guy like Greg Williams, who has a good staff. He hired a guy like Andre Carter, former NFL player for the D-line. He's got the OG Joe Vitt, who's been coaching forever, feisty guy, coaching LBs. And, I think Polite could have a good year, but I don't think there should be too much pressure. And, another sleeper that we didn't even touch on is the 5th-round pick, this kid Blake Cashman. Super quick, I think, could win that spot right behind Avery, learn a ton, and really contribute on specials. I kind of like that Cashman pick as well.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to see a lot on specials this year. I'm excited to see how he plays in the preseason. You hear all good things about him at OTAs and minicamp coming into the little break here. They had a lot of good things to say. He's picking up the defense pretty good. I heard when Greg Williams spoke to the media after minicamp, or right before their last minicamp practice, he said that he was doing well. And he's just a guy that's going to work hard. He made the team at Minnesota, got a scholarship there. And then pretty much worked his way up and led the team in tackles his senior year and worked into a 5th-round NFL draft pick. So I'm not going to, like you said, it's a 5th-round draft pick, but, he'll be definitely a guy to watch too. And this linebacker group, yeah, it definitely, like you said, I think they're very interesting because you got 2 studs, I think, in the middle, and then the outside guys are not really, like you said, they could be the worst in the league. I don't know if they're that bad, but I would probably say make closer to 30, but that's really not much compared to 32. But, we'll see what happens with the outside guys. But, again, the pass rush is an issue. And if they don't have a pass rush going into the next unit, the secondary, this is where I think you're going to have a problem because the Jets really didn't address the cornerback situation in free agency at all, nor did they do it in the draft. They drafted a kid out of Rutgers, Reland Austin, who's injured, who's pretty much going to be on the PUP list, it seems like, for the first couple of weeks of the season. And, they have Trumaine Johnson, who I think is under an enormous amount of pressure this year, coming back after a bust year in year one after signing that $80 million contract. And then on the other side of the ball, you bring back Darryl Roberts, who was really like a nickelback last year. They have Morris Claiborne. They let him go to free agency. He's unsigned. They bring in Brian Poole from Atlanta, more of a slot corner, nickel-type guy to replace Buster Screen. And you have Perry Nickerson as your dime back, who you drafted in the 6th round out of Tulane last year. But, who's that number 2 cornerback? And you expect Johnson to be the top guy, but his year last year was really not a good one. So I don't really have much confidence in the cornerback group. And I thought the plan maybe in the offseason was when they didn't address the cornerback, I figured they got to be going edge pass rush in the draft, because if you get a pass rusher, at least you could take some pressure, and the safeties are pretty good with May and Jamal. We'll talk about them in a minute. But to me, now that the pass rush issue has not been addressed, I'm a little concerned about this group, because I know Darryl Roberts played well and performed well when injuries happened last year when Claiborne went out. But is he really? They paid him $27 million for 3 years, $9 million a year. That's number 2 money. So they're expecting him to start, but I don't really see him as a number 2 corner. So he's got a lot to prove to me. And Tremaine Johnson, under Greg Williams last year, he had his best couple of years when he was with the Rams there, but he needs to bounce back too. So what are your thoughts on these cornerbacks here for the New York Jets in 2019?
Yeah, I don't have much confidence, a lot like you. And when you take a step back and look at this defense, you love them up the middle, but the perimeter is just
Trash.
hasn't really been hasn't really been addressed, and it's very below average. I mean, Darryl Roberts hated that contract, didn't think he deserved it, thought we could have upgraded much better for our second corner. And Tremaine was a huge disappointment last year. Looked terrific. The 2 years previous. Had, years of 7, 8 interceptions, only 4 last year, got picked on a ton, almost seemed very confused at times. So, hopefully that, with Greg Williams, he can get the most out of these guys, and we're going to be saying that a lot because we got a lot of faith in Greg Williams, and we think he can maximize a lot of these guys' potential. But, very disappointed on the outside. But I do think that there's a little ray of sunshine with my guy Brian Poole. I think he's a fantastic slot. 3 interceptions last year. He's feisty. It's crazy. I actually, when I lived in Florida, I got to visit, the Swamp, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, and he was actually on a visit to the school, and I actually got to see him, so that was pretty cool. So it's good to see him in a Jet uniform, and I think he could have a big year. But I think that, the new GM is definitely looking into the cornerback market, definitely looking at to see what he can do, and because it's a glaring hole, in my opinion, Foti.
Yeah, and Joe Douglas, I think that's he's signed a couple guys already off waivers in the first couple moves that he's made as Jets general manager, bringing in a guy from Cleveland, bringing in another guy off the waivers that didn't clear after minicamp cups, and I think he's going to look to maybe improve the team in the summer. And you heard about Detroit maybe down the line. Darius Slay, their corner, is upset with his contract, probably going to hold out there. That could be, so I don't think they're going to trade him. But, I mean, if the Jets could get a guy like that, that would be a very nice upgrade. So maybe something to watch for if they want to give up a pick or something.
Maybe Claiborne.
Yeah, well, yeah, Claiborne definitely could come back. I mean, I think they need something. I mean, Claiborne's not anything to write home about, but he's better than, I think, Darryl Roberts. But they just gave that's the thing, because now you're bringing a new GM, and you just gave this guy $27 million. And that's the one signing where the other ones McCagnon gave out. I didn't really have a problem with C.J. Mosley. I didn't really have a problem with Le'Veon Bell. Jamison Crowder was another one that's on the offensive side of the ball. But this guy he's a backup. He was a career backup, and he's played well. He's a good role player on good teams. So don't get me wrong, you need guys like that. But to pay him starter money, you're showing a lot of confidence in him. And, you're not just going to pay a $9 million player just to sit on the bench. I mean, that's a waste of the salary cap. But now you're here, so we'll see what they do going forward. But let's talk about the 2 safeties, because this is the bright spot in the secondary. And you got these 2 young guys. Jamal Adams, obviously, probably the leader of the defense, the heart and soul of the Jets right now, the face of the team on the defensive side of the ball. He's fired up, ready to go. I just love the way this guy plays with his passion. He's on Twitter all the time, talking up.
The
recruiting
president.
him. Yeah, the president. I love it. I love the guy, the way he plays, and Jet fans, I'm sure, like him. And then you've got your guy from Florida, Marcus May, coming back after another injury. The Jets say that he's ready to go. I hope he's not. He had some tough surgeries in Florida. I know he was hurt a lot there. His rookie year, he was good, and then he got banged up last year in camp and just was never really. He played a couple games and then went out with another injury. So it was kind of like a redshirt year last year and year number 2 for May. But his rookie year, he was fantastic. I thought he did well. Made a lot of tackles, got some interceptions. So I liked what I saw in his rookie year, and I think these two guys together, they're gonna definitely be able to hopefully help these guys on the outside get over the top and just help these guys. And Jamal plays the run so good. Up there, he plays in the box great, comes up, he's not afraid to stick his nose in plays and make tackles. Same thing, Marcus May is played more of a free safety, but I know in college he was up there too in the box. So I think both these guys can do the run and the pass, and I think they're going to be the focal points of this secondary for the Jets this year.
I think they're just a perfect combination, Foti. Adams was absolutely outstanding last year. I saw a poll where he was rated as a top 40 player in the NFL. You got to love that, especially as a guy, only going into his third year. Super aggressive, fantastic in the box, and, slowly getting better at really locking down that tight end and kind of mixing it up with some slots, showing some range there. And, like the theme of the show has been, Greg Williams is just going to maximize this guy even more. Adams can't stop raving about this guy, how much he loves him, how much he's listening to him, how much of a leader he is. And, like I said, May is just the perfect combination. Laid back guy, really can get back deep and, take away those throwing lanes. Very gifted, could actually cover in the slot a little bit, did that at Florida. Loved the pick when he was drafted, but, you kind of hit it with the injuries. Has got to stay on the field because he's a very productive player, and if the Jets want to have a good secondary, Marcus May has got to be on the field.
I agree with you, and that's going to be a big key to the season, keeping Marcus May healthy, getting him back on the field, and having him be making plays for the Jets in the secondary. So I like the safeties. The corners are weak, but I think that we got to talk about Greg Williams a little bit here to finish up all the groups, because the coaching, I think, since Rex Ryan, I think Todd Bowles was a good defensive mind. He had some good schemes, but a lot of his defenses for some reason didn't perform up to expectations. After maybe that first year, the Jets defense in year 2 wasn't as great, and they kind of unloaded a lot of talent. So the third year in 2017 was not great, and then last year they really let a lot of teams run wild on them. So I think they've got a better coach now with Greg Williams, a much more aggressive scheme, kind of going back to the Rex Ryan days where they're going to blitz a lot and, get after the quarterback. And we saw that a little bit in that Cleveland game, how the Cleveland defense was able to get after Darnold, and they were only able, after even getting out to a lead, they were able to hold their own and play well. And like you said, Jamal Adams really loves this guy, says that he's going to, he loves playing for him. A lot of the players love playing for him. He's a guy that's going to be on you. It's a very, hostile practice when he coaches. He yells and screams a lot. He's very vocal. But I think that's something for a young defense, and especially we talked about the youth in this group. Especially there's a lot of young players on this defense, and I think to learn from that, that's definitely something, that they're going to take and they're going to use. And like you said, I think he'll maximize the potential. And that's why I like the coaching staff that they have on this defense. So even though their secondary may not be the strongest, I think these coaches can really, coach this team up and get them into positions to succeed.
Yeah, it's been the saving grace, and the thing that's been able to keep me sane and able to sleep is that I know Greg Williams is running this defense. Besides all the offensive chaos and the front office, I trust Greg Williams. I think he's fantastic. He's got a great staff. And you talk about leadership. You need a guy that's going to hold these guys accountable, bring the energy, keep these guys focused. The Jets don't have one starter on defense who's 30 years old. Every single guy is under 30 that's starting. So, definitely a group that's going to need, guidance. When you look at last year's stats, 25th in yards allowed, 24th in passing yards allowed, 26th in rushing yards allowed, 29th in points allowed, and 20th in sacks. I mean, not good or above average in any category.
Yeah, they're going to need to improve on that. And, like you said, not being able to sleep at night. I think that's funny. Greg Williams is the only reason you're able to sleep. But no, I'm just messing with you. But no, I agree with you. I love the youth of this defense, though. I think that's one, another saving grace there, that they're young. They're going to be able to fly around. Maybe if they mentally may break down on a play, maybe their speed can help them, recoup on the play. But, you got young guys in the secondary with Adams and May. You've got, young guys up front with Quinton Williams. You got Leonard Williams. I know he's 5 years in the league, but still a young guy. Williamson and Mosley are in their prime. So you've got a good combination of, veterans that have done it for a while. And I'll even say Tremaine, even though he didn't play great last year, Tremaine Johnson is a guy that's a veteran that's been there and kind of knows what he's doing in the league. And then you got some young guys. So I think it's a good mix, and especially with Greg coaching these guys, I think that they could, if they potentially play well together, they could definitely, get going and have a decent season. But I think, again, to just really, as we finish up and we get into the 2-minute drill here, I think the key to this defense, and I'll let you touch on it in a sec, Bri, the key to this defense really is going to be the issue of the pass rush. Can they get a pass rush? Can they get enough pressure on the quarterback to really disrupt and make it easier on their secondary? Because if they don't, I think they're going to struggle on the outside. And like you said, the outsides of this defense, whether it's the edge linebackers or the cornerbacks, I think they're a little thin there, and it's going to really fall on them because teams aren't going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to do that, but they're going to throw it a lot on the Jets this year, and they're going to say, you know what, come after us, try to sack us and try to cover us. And I think we're going to see what Greg Williams does to, try to hide those deficiencies, and we're going to find out a lot about this defense in the first couple games of the year when they take on Buffalo, who can throw it with Josh Allen with that strong arm. They've got Philadelphia early with Carson Wentz. They've got Tom Brady in the third game of the year, and they got Baker. Yeah, with Cleveland. So we're going to find out a lot about the secondary and the pass rush for the New York Jets. All right, it's time for the 2-minute drill now. All right, it's time for the 2-minute drill. Fire away, B. Give me some questions.
Who's your breakout defensive player of the year for the Jets?
My breakout defensive player of the year this year is going to be, I'm going to say Quinton Williams. I think his rookie year, I think he's going to make an impact up the middle, and, he's going to perform and make some plays in the run game.
Who will lead the Jets in tackles?
Who will lead the Jets in tackles this year? I'm going to say C.J. Mosley.
Will the Jets be a top 10 defense?
No.
Do the Jets bring in a corner or pass rusher before the season starts?
I think they will. I think Joe Douglas realizes they didn't address the depth of cornerback. I think after the first couple games, they will bring in a cornerback. I don't know if it will be Darius Slayer or someone of that caliber, but I think they'll sign. All right, B, let me give you my questions. Who is under the most pressure on the Jets defense to perform this year?
I'm going to go with Tremaine Johnson, making the most money on the team. Got to step up.
What are your expectations for Marcus May?
I think Marcus May plays all 16 games, has a fantastic season, and is second on the team in interceptions.
Who has a bigger impact for the Jets defense this year, C.J. Mosley or Jamal Adams?
Great question. I'm going to go with Adams.
All right, I like it. And the final question, will Leonard Williams thrive under Greg Williams' defensive scheme?
Yes, I say he has the most sacks of his career.
There you have it. That is the 2-minute drill. This is going to wrap up our defensive portion. Be sure to tune in for our next episode as we continue to break down the Jets. A little bit of a lull right now as, mini camp and training camps are over, but it should be fun as we get closer to July 24th, and that is the day the Jets report to Florham Park and start to prepare for the 2019 season. So for now, everybody, enjoy your day. We will talk to you soon. For B. Reich, I'm Bryan Foti. Have a good one, everybody, and always remember to jet up.